Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again here with another Experiences Living Abroad. I am here with Kat. Hi, Kat. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you, Cinnamon?
I am doing well. Thanks for asking. Kat, tell our viewers, where are you from?
I'm from the US, from Atlanta area originally, smaller
Okay.
town. But yeah.
Okay. And where are you currently staying?
I'm in Vietnam, in Da Nang, on the coast, in the
Hmm.
center of the country.
And how'd you get there?
Oh, it's been a long time coming. I first left the US about 8 years ago. So I started in Latin America and I've kind of bounced around all over the place. And over 2 years ago, ended up in Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh. Lived there for a year and really missed the beach. So
Mm.
now we're here. Yeah.
So when you said you left the US 8 years ago, what initially brought the move on?
Well, it's kind of not the typical story, I suppose. When I was 18, I took a semester off between high school and college, not because I wanted to, but my parents thought it would be a good idea to send me to Guatemala.
Okay.
Um, I actually didn't want to go like at all. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I ended up going and I changed my flight home 3 times because then I decided I loved it. And I ended up going back home, finishing university, but that one trip kind of sparked it all.
Mhm.
And I knew throughout university I had one goal was to get back abroad. So I ended up joining the Peace Corps. So
Mm.
a month after I graduated university, I was on a flight to Ecuador.
Nice. And so you went to Ecuador. Ecuador was the first country in which you lived. How long did you stay there?
2.5 years.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And,
all with the Peace Corps with them. And then from there, started traveling on my own.
and so how did you make the transition from Peace Corps to start traveling on your own? Were you didn't want to come back to the US, or did you come back to the US for a little bit and then leave?
Well, so right after the Peace Corps, a friend was asked me, he was like, "Do you want to go to the Amazon?" And I, of course, wanted to go to the Amazon. So we hitchhiked from Ecuador via boats. It was a ridiculous trip. And ended up in Iquitos, Peru, which is the capital of the Amazon. We got job in a lodge there in the middle of nowhere. And I wanted to live there. I was fine. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm done. But I hadn't been home in over 2.5 years at this point. So
Hmm.
I went back, but I knew it was going to be a short time. I didn't
Hmm.
want to be there, not for any really huge reason, but more because there's just so much I wanted to see. I didn't want to go back home. I wasn't ready.
Hmm.
I'm still not ready. If I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I knew I just went home for a couple months, and every time I knew I didn't have plans yet what I wanted to do after my visit home, but I knew it was a visit. So I was just kind of building those plans. So I bought the cheapest plane ticket I could, which was to Panama, and went there.
So when you went to Panama, did you have a job or anything, or you just went to Panama?
So a lot of the countries I typically just kind of go and hope for the best. This one I had signed up for Workaway because I ended up using a bunch of friends had told me about Workaway. Workaway is a volunteer
I heard
organization.
about
I don't know.
Workaway. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
More
So
like a
so explain,
platform.
talk to our viewers about what Workaway is.
Yeah, so Workaway is an online platform that organizations, individual people, hotels, restaurants, pretty much anyone that has a business in any country in the world almost can set up and say, we want volunteers. So that's on that side. And then they'll
Hmm.
say kind of what you get as a volunteer. Usually you volunteer in exchange for food and accommodation.
Hmm.
So you don't get any money, but you're not spending any money is kind of, the
Hmm.
give and take
Hmm.
of it. So if we sign up as a volunteer, you can just browse. You can narrow down your search. So I had narrowed it. I knew I wanted to go back to Latin America. And then from there, just kind of kept narrowing it based on what I was capable of doing. I had a lot of experience with hospitality. So I was
Hmm.
looking to work in a hotel.
Hmm.
And I found a really awesome hotel on its own island in Panama.
Mm.
I applied for that and I got it. So I spent a month there.
I remember Workaway. Funny story. When I first had the idea of moving to Portugal, I was just trying to decide if I wanted to be a hippie or what I was going to do with myself. And I saw Workaway, and I saw that there was a farm in Portugal. And I remember telling my friends this, and they were like, first you tell me you're moving to Portugal. Now you're going to live on somebody's farm, and you're just going to
The difference for me, they were like, oh, of course you're doing that. I didn't, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
My friends thought I was crazy. But yeah, Workaway, especially if you're young and you don't have anything, and you know, it's a good opportunity to go to another country. You don't have to pay for anything. Yeah.
And there's some really cool, I mean, some work experiences is like a hostel in the city. So if you want to be in the city, but then some things are, you know, you're on an island in the Caribbean, and you can get a lot of either really unique experiences like a farm, or you can get kind of more normal jobs on there as well.
So how did you transition? And for those of you who are watching, it's workaway.com. So just go ahead and Google that and you can find more information about it.
Workaway.info, I think.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Just Google
I
something.
can put it in the comments of this call, but it's not something weird. It's not .com. That's what I'm sure of. Sorry.
Okay. So tell us, so after you left Panama, what was your transition from there?
Well, so I stopped doing Workaway and I became a tour guide through the Sandblast Islands, which are incredible. If you need a vacation, go there. They're wonderful. Okay. I was supposed to just be a guide as a volunteer for one trip from Panama to Colombia, and I stayed 8 months going back and forth because I loved it that much. From there, I kept meeting people that worked in the yachting industry. So I thought that makes sense. Let's work on yachts. So I used all my money and flew to London and worked my way to France, where I ended up getting a job on a yacht that kind of sailed the south of France. I had met a Colombian man in Panama who I thought was going to be like a little fling with, but we ended up really clicking. And he had actually moved to Germany when I moved to yachts. So then we ended up meeting back up and traveling throughout Eastern Europe together and realized it was the real thing. We're now married, so it worked out. And yeah.
You found love abroad. I love it.
I did. It was good. It's good.
People have been asking about dating internationally, and I can say it is good.
Yeah. Are you dating someone from Portugal?
I met someone in Portugal, I guess 4 months after I was there, and fell madly in love, but we did break up.
I'm sorry.
But it was, during the experience, it was awesome. I did meet another person to that fling, had a blast, so I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. He wasn't the first. Sorry, he has headphones on, it's fine. But he's the one that stuck. It worked out very well.
We're going to do experiences living abroad after dark.
Yeah, right. We'll talk again later. Don't worry. We can dive deeper into this if you want. I don't have much shame. I probably should have more, but it's okay.
So you met your now husband. And so how does that dynamic work? Are you guys traveling together, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we went our separate ways after our little fling. We both had plane tickets to Europe, and we're like, well, we want to see our things through. And we realized during that time that we actually missed each other. So we started traveling together. He was working remotely for a German company. He's a designer. So he was kind of free to go where I wanted. And I had saved up a bunch of money on the yacht. So we just kind of traveled and wanted to see if it would work between us. And then I needed money, so I got a job in Korea. And yeah, I know.
Hold on, how?
I know. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry.
But how did you even get there? How did you even end up in Korea? And how did you even find out about opportunities in Korea on the yacht?
Well, so I found out about opportunities in Korea. A friend of mine in the Peace Corps had taught English in Korea. So this is like 4 years before this little bug got like dropped in my head. And I was teaching English in Ecuador. And I was like, okay, and just kind of forgot about it. And then when I was in Europe and running out of money, I was like, okay, I need to find a new job. What do I want to do? I want to keep traveling. And I knew you could make good money in Korea. my husband now, or then boyfriend, he wanted to go to Japan. I wanted to go to Vietnam. So we compromised on Korea,
Mm-hmm.
as you do, you know. And so I started applying for jobs there and I got a job. The cool thing about finding jobs like that, like in advance, is they walk you through the visa process. They hold your hand and say, this is what you need. This is the flight you want to be on. This is the day you want to be here. We're going to give you an apartment. It was just really easy.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to Korea and lived there for a year while he was working online and I was teaching. And then we loved Korea, but I was ready for a change again because that's how it is. And so we started traveling Southeast Asia. I thought I wanted to live in Vietnam, and he didn't think he'd like Vietnam. But then once we got here, we stayed here a month, and we both really liked Ho Chi Minh. So I got a job at a school there. And again, he was still working online. And then because of an injury, I had to quit my job. And now I work online, which has been a good blessing. But so now we're both working remotely and have been able to move to the beach.
Whew.
I know. I'm sorry. I feel like, I mean, I just told you 8 years of my life and like
What
a
are
really
you apologizing for? I think it's fascinating.
Oh,
So
good. I hope it's not like information overload. Like,
no. How do you to just be able to jump and leap and move and go so fluidly? Have you just always been that person?
um, yes and no. I've always really liked an adventure. Like I've always been the one, like was the one that was going to say yes to things, you know? But like I told you, when I was 18 and moved to Guatemala, I didn't want to go. I couldn't find Guatemala on a map. I mean, I'm from a small town in Georgia. Like they weren't really teaching me those things. And that changed everything in terms of like traveling and realizing like how awesome it is and how unique, you know, things are to still be kind of interconnected. And it's just kind of sprung from that.
So,
Okay, good. That'll
so
help
during
us
your
both.
travels, you created Girls Gone Working, and talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I created Girls Gone Working so I said at the end of my job in Ho Chi Minh, I got injured. I needed to have surgery. I had to stop teaching and working on my feet. So I decided to create a website. I didn't really have that much of a plan, to be honest. You know, I took it more seriously once it started, but it started as just I need something to keep me busy while I can't work. And from there, it's just really blossomed. It's been going on for a year and a half now. So as you just heard, my expertise lies in finding jobs and fluidly kind of moving around and finding my home in different places. And I wanted to share with people that you can totally do that, because when I was doing it, I was just kind of making it up as I went. And every time I went somewhere, I was shocked at how many opportunities I could find from there. So it was just kind of like bouncing around and learning what I could from other travelers and other expats. So Girls Gone Working is a community hub of all those experiences. So I started it based off my experiences, but it's not just about me. The people that write for the website are all people who are living and working abroad. So they either write about their job abroad. If they are, you know, teaching English in Thailand, they write about how you can teach English in Thailand. Or if they are a travel vet and have traveled the world as a veterinary, they talk about, if you are a trained vet, how you can do that. And same with, like, we do city guides, you know, people that are living in Portugal. Actually, there's no one that's written about Portugal. But if, you know, you're living in Portugal or like Budapest or somewhere, you write like an expat guide. And that tells the reader, if they want to move to Budapest, what it's like as a foreigner living there. Things you might want to know about renting an apartment, getting a visa, like all of those things that, you know, a lot of us have to figure out on the fly, but you can kind of sit down and browse the site and find out, you know, browse your potential opportunities in jobs and in cities. And with COVID, I've branched into online jobs as well, because so many people are forced to work online.
Right. And so I just want to touch on that because one of the large questions I get when people who want to move abroad, they talk about, finding jobs. And one of the things that I recommend is basically starting a website, especially in your field of expertise. And just like you've done, you've been all these places, you have a lot of information to give. And I think sometimes when people are coming specifically from the corporate sector, and they want to come out and they want to travel. And it's just like they've been learning whatever for a substantial amount of years. They have a substantial amount of experience, but they have a hard time kind of converting that skill digitally and understanding that people still need that information. And creating a website is a great way of doing that, particularly if you get a bunch of people coming, let's say 30,000 per month. You can easily monetize it to at least about minimum of about 1,500 to 2,000 USD. We won't go directly into that. You guys know I do digital marketing, so that's just some random facts I wanted to jump on you in regards to kind of, taking your expertise and converting online just to a specific website. A lot like Kat said, getting writers and getting that traffic, and then you can profit off of the website a variety of different ways. We won't go into that right now, but just kind of consider that and building that even before you leave. If you want to leave, build it before you go.
I always recommend people, especially if they want to work online, if you need to learn a necessary skill or do something while you're in your comfort zone, do it, because you have a lot that you need to handle when you're abroad. And a lot of things, especially if it's your first time abroad and you're in a new country, you're going to be overwhelmed. So if you could help yourself by, laying some groundwork ahead of time, you're going to really thank yourself later.
I agree. I started another web company when I got to Portugal because I saw that there were some things that I could probably use technology to create a better user experience. So I do feel like once you leave, you get creative and you start to see inefficiencies in things and maybe how your skill set can help. And so, yeah, I love that. So tell me, how do you think with all the experiences you've had moving abroad, how has that changed your perspective on life?
I mean, it's really changed it, but sometimes I guess because I moved abroad pretty young, it's kind of hard for me to realize how much it's changed until I'm around people that knew me before, I guess. But one huge thing is, again, I'm from a small town in Georgia. I've learned how fucking amazing diversity is. Mm-hmm. I didn't grow up in a really diverse community, and I didn't grow up seeing diversity as like such an amazing facet of life. But then when you're abroad and you're living in international cities or just meeting expats and you kind of meet them from all over the world, it's just amazing how much you have to learn from other people when you're in a diverse community. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, so that's changed my outlook so much. Like diversity, just really cool. And also patience. Learning just to be patient, just to take a deep breath and say, okay, I have nothing, I can't do anything about this, or it's my fault. Mm-hmm. You also have to learn a lot to like take blame for things. A lot of times you don't want to take blame for the visa agent, but if you don't speak the language and you can understand the visa agent, like it is your fault. Mm-hmm. And that is a learning curve,
So since you've spent, the last 8 years out of the country, do you see yourself going back to the US?
No.
Like ever? No. To visit, but to live and no, not to live.
I never want to say never, because, if you would have asked me 8 years ago if I would have been here, I would have been like, most likely not. So I don't want to say never, but it is not something I'm thinking about. It's not something I'm striving towards. I'm thinking about moving to Portugal. I'm thinking about living in Mexico. I'm thinking about all these other things. And there's a lot I love about the States. I love my family. I have great friends from there. And there's a lot of really cool things that the States offers, but there's a lot that it lacks. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you're away, maybe I'm starting to see more what it lacks than it has. Maybe that's my fault, maybe not, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I thought that my moving internationally was going to be when I got much older, like far as retirement. I I think in 2018, I was just frustrated. I was just like, I gotta go. I had traveled extensively about 3 years prior, but I had never lived out the country, and it was so many naive mistakes that I made looking back on it.
Part of it though, yeah.
And I think, and for anyone watching this, I know I get a lot of questions about people, just researching. I do recommend that you research everything and Google and get as much research as you can. And there's just some things that you couldn't research that was about to happen.
No. I also, though, a side note on researching, I completely agree. And I think knowledge is power, but I think you need to know either A, like be careful where you're getting your information from. Mm-hmm. Because as expats, and the reason I made Girls Gone Working is like, there's so many travel guides to places, but a travel guide to somewhere is completely different as living somewhere. Mm-hmm. And also you could get too much and then you have expectations and you're kind of like thinking my experience is going to be just like this other person's, and it's not,
It won't. Yeah. I think when you travel, you just have to kind of focus on just this individual journey that you're about to go on and how enlightened you're going to be afterwards. And if you definitely need to roll with the punches. And like she said, you definitely need some patience. But it is one of the most enlightening and wonderful things that you could do, even if you don't want to move abroad, but just get out there and see that there are other people that live differently than you.
Yeah.
And how that affects your life.
I even say to people, like, if you're not ready to move abroad, if you can get away for a month or even shorter, but I think a longer period of time is cool, especially if you stay in like an Airbnb or like in a local area, because, some people go to Mexico and stay in resorts and they're like, oh, I've been to Mexico. I'm like, well, like, I'm sorry to take away from your experience, but like, that's not
right.
Mexico, So, but I do think everyone has something to gain, even if you can't live abroad. I agree with you. Just like getting out of your comfort zone is a huge learning curve, and it's awesome,
Mm-hmm. And what advice would you give to those individuals who are considering moving abroad?
Do it. Like, rip the Band-Aid off. There's one thing that I hope you've gathered from my story of moving all different places is nothing is permanent in this lifestyle. So let's say you think you want to move to Sweden. Sweden is the greatest place on earth. You want to go, you go, and two things happen. You either love Sweden or it doesn't fit those boxes for you. Either way, you have a conscious decision. You can stay or you can go. There's so many places that I've loved. I've loved everywhere I've been. I never left because I didn't like it, but I've left even loving it because I want to see more. I want to do more. So it's not permanent. Or if there's somewhere that you go and you don't like it, well then move. Give it an honest shot. Don't just, the first week say this is stupid. But once, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And that's okay. It's not permanent.
Mm-hmm. And if you put it in perspective, like there is a whole world out there. There's like a massive, massive world out there. And if you feel like you just want to know what's going on in this little bubble, like you're missing so much. I just wish I could, like, you could bottle it and just give it to people to get them to understand how awesome it is. And even in the awesomeness, because I also, I want to be as transparent as possible, even though you hear a lot of people speaking, positively about travel and moving abroad, there is some shit.
Oh yeah, 100%. I actually just had a terrible experience last weekend. My husband had to go to the hospital. Yeah, he's fine. It's okay. It's not, but calling the ambulance here, they don't speak English. I speak this much Vietnamese, and not when I'm panicking and not when I need an ambulance for my husband. And they don't speak English. So like that alone, I had to call friends and no one was picking up their phone. But I got them, we're okay. But that shit happens, and that's not a day that I wish I was abroad. That day I wish someone spoke fluent English to me because you're panicking. Mm-hmm. But, it's still life, but it's, I don't know, better.
Life is better because things are going to happen even where you are currently. So it's
exactly. But
things are going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Kat, I want to thank you so much for your time and
Yeah,
speaking
thank
with
you for
us.
having me. Can I want to throw one thing out I just started
Absolutely.
doing for Girls
Sure.
Gone Working. So Girls Gone Working is my company, and I'm also the same with you, Cinnamon. I hate's a strong word. I dislike when people perceive living abroad as like what they see on Instagram, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not true. There's, a lot of days are like that, but a lot of days aren't. But so on Girls Gone Working, I do my best to show the real life kind of sides. And I've just started a mentorship program. I just launched it last week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we can do one-on-one calls and to help people overcome these fears or these barriers, or just ask questions about moving abroad to help them get the confidence and courage and get all of the logistics taken care of to get from your home country to wherever you dream of going.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone's interested in one-on-one calls.
Absolutely. And we'll put the link in the description, correct? We'll have the link in the description. And thank you so much for that, Kat. We really appreciate the time getting to know you and hearing all of our tricks. It's nice meeting you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Experiences Living Abroad, thanks for joining us.